Joining us today are two coaches from the Northball Youth Program who are investing in kids on and off the court. So welcome Ian, who is the operations manager of Northball Athletics, and Deon, who is the coach of Northball Athletics. Welcome to our show today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us. Well, we know that as we're celebrating Youth Day today, and both of you, I know personally even, are highly invested into the lives of youth. So can you share with us the mission and vision of your Northball program and why and how this is impacting youth?
Well, for us personally, it has been a blessing to do this. And it's focused mostly on the fact that we see ourselves in the youth, right? Mm-hmm. We see ourselves in the youth that we never had the guidance to fulfill our dreams, as maybe going into basketball or any other things that we had dreamt of as kids. So we said, let's take this a step further. Let's give back to the community. Let's lead them, guide them into the right ways that they need to go. And using the sport of basketball, it makes it so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I feel, Emily, that you touched on something that's very important, which is mental health. Me, especially as a youth, born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, mental health wasn't something that was ever talked about. Right. So it was never acknowledged. So this was one of those things that we had to figure out on our own. And there was never someone there really, like a big brother or a mentor or even a coach that can touch on it or even talk about it, just because the awareness of it wasn't so much there. And I feel like now that we have this great opportunity where the awareness is there, we can touch base on it more in an open way, right? We can talk about these uncomfortable conversations like bullying and suicidal thoughts and, just things that weren't so much out in the open before.
Yeah. And what I've loved as I've watched even the impact of Northball program is that it has a lot to do with basketball and skill, but it's so much more about that. You really are mentoring these young people to live full lives, right? 100%. I know my kids were a part of one of the camps and they said, today we learned about empathy and how to be, with other people. And that's about pouring in values to people. So Ian, I know a big part of this journey for you has been really because of your background. You talked a bit about that. You were growing up, you were part of gangs and addictions and stuff. So how have these experiences influenced you or motivated you to really talk about and be involved in mentoring and empowering the next generation?
Absolutely. I'd love to touch on that. So growing up, I grew up as a Hindu. So I didn't know what a church looked like, didn't know what a Christian community looked like, didn't know what love looked like, didn't even know that there was a God that I could talk to, right? A lot of the Hindu religion is based on traditions and doing certain acts and, praying to these deities and statues, idol worship. So there's no relationship there. So it took a near-death experience for me at the age of 22 for me to actually see and experience God through a family member. And my goal after that, I traveled to Kenya, I started working with youth and, it was prophesied over me that I would work with children and youth, which to me sounded ridiculous at the time. But, so much fruit came out of that. And, here I am now. If I could prevent another youth from experiencing what I went through and my hardships and what I thought was, living life in an inner city community area, then, if I can just help one youth with that, then my mission is complete. So that's really why I'm really into this and, just pour myself into these kids and youth as much as I can. So I feel like that's where God's using me.
Yeah, that's powerful, so powerful. And you as well, Deon, before you launched the Northball program, you were really coaching and training and mentoring youth just in neighborhood parks and things, just as a way to pour in to you. So why do you think it's so important to pour into them and give them purpose?
Like I said before, it's like I saw myself in them and, definitely society's against kids today. And after being around them so much, it's like they don't have a way out or someone to speak to or someone to just guide them, right? And Northball, for me, it started in the parks, like you said, and I saw it firsthand. And a lot of the kids I helped personally, and through basketball, it definitely made it so much easier to unify and to speak to them. Because if I'm just some random guy on the street and just playing basketball, they're not going to talk to you, right? So through basketball and giving them the opportunity to learn something, and then also slipping biblical values and also just knowledge of the world and stuff like that, it helps them a lot. Yeah.
And what's so great is because your program is subsidized, it gives opportunity for so many different people to access this program. Well, we'll be right back to hear stories about the impact that Northball is having on young kids. Well, welcome back. Here we are with Iyan and Deon. Thank you again for joining us. It's been so great hearing the impact that you're having. So tell us, what are some of the strategies or advice that you would give to individuals to help them foster a sense of community or belonging among the young people that they know or have in their lives?
I can tell you this much. When I was a youth, nobody could tell me I was a youth. Have you ever tried telling a youth they're a youth? It's not going to work. I think it's kind of like coming down to their level, speaking to them as if they're a young adult and acknowledging them, acknowledging their feelings. Because at the end of the day, the way I see children, the way I see youth is these are people, right? Yes. And you need to treat them and address them like people that have real emotions, real feelings, real problems. For me, when I started working with youth and children, there was a lot of me putting into them and pouring into them, and I found that my cup would always end up empty. But what I'm learning today in my 30s is that I'm actually the one that's learning from them. Wow. And I'm the one that's actually taking away from them, which makes the mentoring and the leadership process so much more easier. Our managing director, who's also a mentor to me, was, during the beginning of this, would always tell me about, decreasing yourself. And by decreasing yourself, you allow the kingdom to increase. And I think it all comes from a place of humility and just aligning yourself with that youth and allowing yourself with that child, which then allows the kingdom to increase.
That's good. On the same lines, Iyan, why don't you share any stories or transformational moments that you've had with the youth in the program?
I'm not going to say any names, but there was this one youth that he'd always come and play ball with us, right? And I feel like, as Deon would always say, coaches seem to be the last line of defense, because I feel that parents and teachers have all these restrictions now of what they can say and what they can't say. So, there was a youth that would always come, he'd play ball, but, he wouldn't really speak to anybody. He'd always be in his little corner. And one of the days, and which I love about our program, because parents love approaching us. I feel that we have that approachable nature. And she came up to me, the mother came up to me and said, will you please chat with him? He hasn't been right at home, and things have been a little bit off and distant. So sure enough, I went up to him and said, hey, young man, let's chat after program. Let's have a slice of pizza. Let's talk about this. And, it was a fresh reminder that, hey, he's going through heartbreak. Right? He ends up opening up this 15-year-old youth. He's going through heartbreak, and he thinks his life is over, and this is it, and he's going to be alone for life. And then he starts telling me about all these dark thoughts. So we just got to unpackage that, and I just got to remind him that he's loved and that he has a father that loves him. Apart from just what's happening at home, that and it's a little sensitive too with we're the light in the dark, so we can't really openly talk about God. But I asked permission. I'm like, hey, can we pray for you? And that was a great opportunity for all of us as coaches to lay hands on him, pray for him. And sure enough, now he's one of our volunteers.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love what you said there, like how as mentors or coaches, like we can pour into young people in a different way than even parents or teachers. And that's really why this is such a powerful way to invest into people. So looking ahead, what do you envision as long-term benefits with mentoring and empowering the young generation, and specifically through your Northball program?
Well, for us, something that has really, as Iyan just shared that testimony, healthy families and long-lasting relationships. It's been such a pleasure to see the change that we have done so far, even with that young man that Iyan shared about. And I feel like this has definitely been added on to what we already said we would do, and we enjoy it. we enjoy doing that. And definitely the way society is pushing against families being together and all these other things. But we see the need for that, and we want to see happy families. We want to see long-lasting friendships within, and that just creates a better community overall. And that's our goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you hear that through that story that you shared, how even the mom was willing to come and approach you and say, hey, can you chat with him, right?
Yeah.
She knew, obviously, the respect that he had for you, but also the investment, right? I think you touched on it, Ian. Relationship is huge when we're impacting the next generation. And so this is why something like a Northball basketball program is about basketball and yet so much more, right? Because you're investing, you're building that relationship, and you're pouring into them really the love of Jesus. So how has mentoring youth helped you find purpose and meaning in your own journey?
Wow, that's a loaded one.
Yes, it is.
I think, as I mentioned before, it's allowed me to decrease in myself, as I mentioned. And through that, my glass is always full. I think for us, the main thing is that what I've seen is that a lot of the times with the Christian community, we are really good at being the light in the light, right? And so this bubble forms, and I think our mission is to be the light in the dark, where there is, there is no mentors, where there are no leaders. I want to be, throw me into that community of Muslims, throw me into that community of violence, throw me into that community of heartbreak, because I want to come there and just show them where, that's where Jesus would be, honestly. Jesus was always around the lepers. He was always around, the prostitutes, the broken. And I just feel like that's what our mission is here.
Yeah.
And, God's been really good in that aspect, really good in that aspect. And, we started with 15 kids, 15 families, and we're at a point where we've exploded. And it's at a point where we can't even look at any more applications because there's just no way to facilitate them. So as mentioned, there's a need there. I know God will provide, but, I just see that for the future. I just see for Northball and for the youth, I just see an explosion of just, light in darkness.
That's amazing, incredible, and powerful. Well, thank you so much for joining with us today and for sharing. And if you want to know more about Northball Athletics, then I encourage you to go to our website, 700club.ca, and you can find out more about the program there.